if this spreadsheet helps those people and they all share it with one friend, then we've reached 3,000 people. And if everyone shares it with another friend, then we've reached 6,000 people. And that's just a really, I'd say, meaningful thing for us, right? Just it's a lot of our own achievements, I would say, is thanks to our parents and thanks to the Chinese community. I'm from North Carolina. So it feels really nice to give back, even in a small way. So having said that, I think we can jump right into it. Let me pull up the presentation here and share my screen.
Yeah, and while Nick is pulling up the presentation, I just wanted to go over the logistics for this evening's presentation. Due to the number of people, we actually have 500 people on Zoom, which is the maximum that Zoom can support. We are also live on YouTube. So for anyone else who has friends who want to watch through YouTube, thank you for posting a link. You can just click on the YouTube link. Again, due to the sheer number of people, we want to streamline Q&A. So if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. We'll try our best to answer as many questions as we can during the presentation. We'll also have a Q&A section at the very end. So please feel free to ask questions. If we're unable to get through all of the questions, we can just address them in WeChat. So we'll give you an opportunity to join our WeChat group, and you can just ask us in the WeChat group. So with that, I'll turn it back to Nick.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, if everyone can just stay on mute, otherwise I'll hear myself and go crazy during the presentation. So we're going to talk about two topics today. The first is, when should you collect Social Security? And the second is, when should you convert your pre-tax IRA to Roth? And John just mentioned before that the questions, you can type it into Zoom. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can. And we'll also share the Excel spreadsheet with the group as well, so you can do your own calculations. I think one thing you'll take away from this presentation is, or I hope that you'll take away, is there are some general rules when it comes to thinking about what the right answer is for these two questions, but about 20 to 30% of the time, there might be an exception to the rule. So you want to just run your own financials and your own situation through the spreadsheet to figure out whether you're within the general rule, or you might want to do something different. Okay, so the first topic. Okay, so the first question is, when should you collect Social Security? So this depends on a few factors. The first factor is what is your full retirement age and how much is your primary insurance amount? So your primary insurance amount is your monthly Social Security benefit that you collect once you reach your full retirement age. So my hypothesis is that most people on this call are probably born 1960 or later, in which case your full retirement age is 67. You can see it right here in the table, which means once you reach the age of 67, you can start collecting 100% of your monthly primary insurance amount. The easiest way to find your primary insurance amount is on the Social Security website. So I've included a link here, and there's also a link in the spreadsheet. It's kind of a complicated formula for how the government gets to this amount. So the most accurate and easiest way to figure out what it is for yourself is to go into your account. So once you have your primary insurance amount, the question is, what happens if you collect before or after your full retirement age? So again, if you're born 1960 or later, your full retirement age is 67 right here. However, you can start collecting Social Security at 62 all the way up to 70. If you collect early at the age of 62, for example, you get a lower percentage of your primary insurance amount. In this case, if your primary insurance amount is $2,500, you'd collect $2,500 times 70% or $1,750 per month. If you wait later than your full retirement age, in this case to age 70, for example, what happens is you can collect more than your primary insurance amount. So you can collect up to 124% times 2,500 or $3,100 per month. So this is the approximate table of how you think about it. I think the thing to keep in mind is the natural inclination might be, oh, I should probably collect at age 70 because the amount is higher then. But it depends on a few factors. One of which is, for example, life expectancy. If a person's life expectancy is 70, for example, you don't want to start collecting at age 70 because you then didn't earn anything from age 62 to 70. Another factor might be, for example, your expected rate of return. If you're a phenomenal investor and can double your money every year, you would want to collect the money as early as possible, for example, right? That's an extreme example, but that's just trying to make the point that it depends on a few different factors. The final couple factors to keep in mind is if you're married, there are a few specific things to know. The first is that you can choose to collect your spouse's Social Security if your spouse passes away first. Why might you want to do that? If, for example, your spouse's Social Security amount is higher, then in that case, when they pass away first, you probably want to now start collecting their amount instead of your own. Similarly, you can choose to collect up to 50% of your spouse's Social Security if that is higher than your own. So a situation where this may be relevant is if there's a stay-at-home husband or stay-at-home wife. In that scenario, you would probably want to collect 50% of your spouse's Social Security because your benefit might be quite low, since the primary insurance amount part of that formula is how many years you've worked. So these are just a few other rules to keep in mind. And the best way to actually get into the details is to show you guys the spreadsheet. So let me just share my screen here. Let's see. So I do want to show one thing because we get a question about this a lot, which is desktop. Oh, interesting. Okay. Apps. Sorry, give me just a moment. Okay, I think I might have to share my full screen, which is totally fine. Let me stop sharing for a moment. Okay. Let me share my desktop. Okay, I think you guys should be able to see everything now, right? Okay, so this is the spreadsheet. I just want to quickly explain one thing, which is this spreadsheet, when we share it as a Google link. I'm an editor, but you will not be an editor. The way you have to use it is you have to click File, Download, Microsoft Excel. The reason I can't give editing permission for this sheet is because it's the sheet we share with everyone. So just keep in mind that we get a lot of edit requests for the sheet. If we give you edit requests and you enter your information here, everyone now has your information. So you have to do File, Download, Microsoft Excel. And then once you download it into Excel, okay. Are you seeing that, John? Are you seeing my Excel right now?
Yeah, I am. I think it's working.
Okay, perfect.
By the way, for everyone who's been asking how to join the WeChat group, the QR code was just posted in the Zoom chat. So
Okay, perfect. And we'll put it on the screen at the end, by the way, guys.
yes.
Yes, don't worry. We'll make sure everyone gets access.
Yeah, I'm also accepting everyone's friend invite right now. The other question, Nick, by the way, is where can we download the Google Doc?
The Google Sheet.
Yes, the Google Sheet.
Yes, so we'll post the link into the WeChat group, so that way you can download it. We'll post a recording of the video, so you always have it for reference. And all the information will be in there. Sorry, we do need to update this group. Please do not scan the QR code I have on the screen right now. That group is already filled. So very quickly, this is the spreadsheet, and you can see here there are 4 tabs. And the way you should use this sheet, and sorry, one last thing about the spreadsheet. Sometimes people have said they have issues editing it. It almost 99% of the time has been because you have an older version of Excel. So I think updating your Excel will usually solve that issue. Okay, back to the spreadsheet. So the way you want to use this sheet is you can go from tab 1 to tab 4. So there are 4 tabs here, and you just go in order. So tab 1 is the Social Security calculator, and we'll go through this together. So you can see here, you can input your age. So for example, in this case, we have a husband and wife who is 62 and 60 in 2024. These are the inputs, by the way. Remember, a moment ago, we had mentioned life expectancy is also an important input. So in this case,
Nick,
we have...
do not see that.
Nick,
we do not see that.
Yeah, we cannot see that.
Yeah, you have not opened the first sheet yet.
Oh, sorry.
Well, this is the instruction. I think I see it.
Oh,
yeah,
you guys are totally right. I apologize. Sorry, the last time I did this in a Google Sheet, but then this time I'm doing Excel. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay, sorry. Okay, hopefully you're seeing it now. A moment ago, I mentioned there were 4 tabs, and we're in tab 1, Social Security, and we're looking at the input section. So as I mentioned just a second ago, the age, your age is the first thing you enter in here. Then life expectancy is the second thing. And remember, that's an important factor because that determines the total duration of Social Security payouts. The primary insurance amount. This, again, you just get from, I have a little link in here, but you can get it from your Social Security account. And then return on investment. We'll go into this in just a moment as to why it's relevant. And then finally, the age you start collecting Social Security. And we'll take a moment here to go down to this table. And this table basically shows you how this particular tab works, which is, here's your age. We're in 2024, year 2024. Husband, 62, wife, 60. And you can see here, we have the husband starting to collect at the age of 70. And similarly, the wife is also collecting at the age of 70. And the amount they collect, there's a somewhat complicated formula, but this formula automatically updates based on the age you're collecting. And remember, the reason that happens is, here's a little table showing it. If your primary insurance amount is $2,500, if you start collecting at age 30, that's $3,100 per month because it's a little bit hot. Oh, sorry, I said age 30. If you start collecting at age 70, the amount is $3,100, which is a little bit higher. And annually, that's about $37,000. So you can see that is automatically pooled into the husband's Social Security benefit based on the age he starts collecting. So let me minimize this. So this basically shows the husband's collections and the wife's collections And then you'll notice here, the table will automatically update where if, for example, in this case, the husband passes away first, the wife's collections will automatically update to the higher of the two, which is the husband's. Remember, we had talked about a moment ago that you can inherit your spouse's Social Security benefit. And in this case, you would want to because it's higher. So what happens is this calculates all of your Social Security payments, and then it totals them in this column. And then you can look up here. There's two outputs in this tab. The first is the total cash amount, and that's the total cash amount of all the benefits you're paid. That is basically the sum of this column here. And what you can do is you can try out different ages where you start collecting. So remember, right now it's about 1.6 million is the total cash amount, right? And if you start collecting earlier, it's now 1.4. And that logically kind of makes sense, right? Because in this case, the life expectancy is very high, which means there's a decent chance that you want to collect later in this case. But say, for example, let's try, life expectancy 70, for example, 72 or 73. In this case, this amount is quite low, but if you start collecting earlier, you would expect this amount to go up. Similarly, it goes up as well if the wife starts collecting earlier. So again, it just takes into consideration the life expectancy to figure out when you should probably start collecting. Now, there's another factor that we haven't talked about yet, which is this second output here. This is the net present value. So a moment ago, we had mentioned the return on investment. So this concept is a little bit complicated if it's a newer one, which is $100 today is worth more than $100 a year from now. If your return on investment is 3% annually, if your return on investment is 3% annually, then $100 today is worth $103 a year from now, right? So the idea behind net present value is it takes into consideration the fact that there's time value to money, which is if there's a positive return on investment, you want money earlier. That's basically what this cell takes into consideration. And here's an example. I'm going to use extreme example to illustrate the case. Let's say if you're an incredible investor, you're doing 30% returns, right? If you're doing 30% returns, remember, that's not going to affect the total cash amount, but this NPV, it's quite low right now. If you change to 62, you can see the cash amount went down, but the net present value went up. Let me show you guys again. 70, it's 1.6 and about 30,000, right? 62, the cash amount went down, but the net present value went up. And the reason that happens is because of this return on investment. If your return on investment is higher, you want to collect earlier. So there's just two different ways to think about this. The first is the total cash amount you'll collect over your lifetime. And the second is the net present value. So those both are relevant and things you should keep in mind. So the purpose of this sheet is basically you can kind of play around with your numbers and your assumptions to get the amount of Social Security and when you should probably collect it to maximize your total benefit. Okay, so that's topic one. And now I'm going to swap back over to the presentation. Okay, hopefully I don't have any issues here. Let's see. Okay. Slideshow. Perfect. Can you, John, can you see my presentation?
Yep, you're back.
Okay, nice. Okay, one last point on Social Security is very likely it will be taxed. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind, which is if you're earning more than $44,000, including Social Security, including some, maybe you're earning a little bit of interest income, maybe you're earning a little bit of money from rental houses, then there's a decent chance that you are going to be taxed. Sorry, up to 85% means 85% of your Social Security amount is taxable. Your tax rate is still determined by your ordinary income tax rate. All right, topic 2. So these two are very connected, right? And we'll go into that in a moment. So when should you convert from a pre-tax IRA to a Roth IRA? The first concept to keep in mind is that a pre-tax IRA will be taxed at some point. It could be taxed if you voluntarily withdraw it. It can be taxed if you voluntarily convert it into a Roth, or it could be forcibly taxed. It could be forcibly taxed when you have to withdraw from your IRA due to something called required minimum distributions, or John, do you need access to my screen?
Nope, I'm good.
Oh, okay. Or it could forcibly be taxed when your beneficiary has to withdraw. So when your beneficiary inherits a pre-tax IRA, they have 10 years to make that withdrawal. One of the exceptions to this is if you want to donate your pre-tax 401k or IRA. If you want to donate it, nonprofits don't have income tax. So that's a good way to potentially maximize the after-tax value of your IRA if you want to donate it anyways. You probably want to donate it pre-tax, not Roth. So the second thing to keep in mind is, if possible, you want more money in your Roth. In your Roth, the gains and the income, and by income, I mean like interest income, it's tax-free. So that's a pretty big advantage over time. That means you probably want to use money outside of your pre-tax IRA or your Roth first. So like an individual individual investment account, for example, you might want to use that as for your expenses first. Similarly, you probably want to convert your pre-tax to Roth instead of withdrawing your pre-tax, because once you withdraw it and you say, for example, if you don't need that money, the future gains on that money is now taxable, versus if you had converted it to your Roth, the future gains are not taxable. So what factors influence when you convert? There are a few major ones. The first is, when is your income the lowest? When you convert your pre-tax to a Roth, that's a taxable event. So, and will be taxed as income. So you want to keep in mind your income tax bracket at that point in time. The second is, will the income of your beneficiaries, for example, your children, be higher or lower? So for example, if your beneficiaries are working when they inherit a pre-tax IRA, there's a decent chance they might be in a pretty high tax bracket at that point in time. The third factor is, will tax rates change in the future? So let's spend a moment to talk about all three factors. The first is, when is your income the lowest? So you want to look for periods with lower income. So a good example of this, and it will, again, this varies from person to person, which is why it's hard to rely on general rules. But a good general rule is, when you retire, all of a sudden you don't have salary, you don't have W-2 income. So that probably means your income steps down. You have a period of time potentially, depending on when you start pulling down on Social Security, when you start collecting Social Security. So for example, if you collect Social Security at 70, you have kind of this window of time. And then depending on when you were born, your RMD is likely 73 or 75. So once you hit that age, you will be forced to start withdrawing from your pre-tax IRA. There's no choice at that point. For most people on this call, if you're born after 1960, that age is likely 75 for your RMD. So there are these gaps where you have less income and you'll be in lower income tax brackets, and that's the best time to convert. Another factor to take into consideration, the second one, is the income of your beneficiaries. So your beneficiaries, when they inherit either a pre-tax or a Roth IRA, they have 10 years to withdraw. If you inherit a pre-tax IRA, it makes sense to spread out the withdrawal, right? And let me just give an example. If, for example, a working professional inherits $1 million very large pre-tax IRA, they don't want to withdraw that all in 1 year because that would really spike your income tax in that year. So the best they can do, assuming there's no returns over 10 years, which is unlikely, but if there is none, you would potentially withdraw $100,000 every single year to try to basically take the tax hit over 10 years. And this can be challenging if, for example, they're still working, because whatever their marginal tax bracket is at that point in time, say, for example, they're in the 22% tax bracket, that $100,000 is all in that 22% tax bracket, right? Or even if maybe it even bumps you up to the next tax bracket. And the flip side is true with a Roth, which is if you inherit a Roth, you want to withdraw at the very end of 10 years as a beneficiary, because during those 10 years, you can grow the Roth and all those gains will be tax-free. So you don't want to withdraw at all during those 10 years. The final factor to take into consideration is, will tax rates be higher in the future? And there's a lot of uncertainty here. It's quite hard to predict where tax rates are going, but we can at least give a bit of an example here, which is the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So that decreased tax brackets starting in 2018. So you can see here, 2024 tax brackets. By the way, can you see my mouse, John?
Yep, we can.
Okay, good. So you can see here 2024 tax brackets versus the 2017 tax brackets before the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed. And say, for example, you earn $100,000 in income. In 2024, you'd be in the 22% tax bracket. In 2017, you would have been in the 25% tax bracket. So keep in mind, the original TCJA, that was passed with a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate. And that ends, the law ends by 2026. And it may require, no one knows yet how the elections will go this year, but it may require a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate for it to actually be extended. So there's at least a decent probability that we might resort to the pre-TCJA tax rates once the law sunsets. So that's just something to keep in the back of the mind, but it's very hard to predict these things. We'll get more of an indication after the elections. Okay, now let's swap over back to the spreadsheet. Okay, here we go. So the reason we go in order of the sheet is because the Social Security amount is income, right? That affects your income tax rate. So we want to go in order here. The next tab we want to talk about is the RMD calculator. So RMDs, required minimum distributions. Again, these are mandatory withdrawals that could start at the age of 73 or 75. This sheet will automatically take into consideration your current age to determine when the RMD kicks in. So you don't have to worry about that, but there are a few inputs here. The first input is your current IRA value. So you can just add up your IRAs if you have multiple, but you just enter that in here. You enter the return on investment you expect in your IRA. And again, you'll see in a moment why this is important. But what this sheet does is it takes into consideration your starting value. For example, the husband, 800,000, the annual investment return, 3%, so 24,000 per year. And basically this shows, how your pre-tax IRA grows over time. And you can see here, it's growing. In this case, this is linked to the other sheet, but we haven't included any Roth conversions yet. And you can see this grows over time until, in this case, because this the husband and the wife were born after 1960, in this case, the husband has reached age 75 and his required minimum distributions kick in. So you can see here, it started to kick in. One thing that to keep in mind, though, is the RMDs are based on a formula from the US government. And even with the RMDs, without conversions, most of the time, because your IRA grows with investment, what's going to happen is you're still going to have some left over. So remember from the Social Security website, Social Security tab, the life expectancy was 90, right? So here the husband reaches 90 and there's still 750,000 left in his pre-tax IRA. You can see that here. Here are the outputs. You can see the total RMDs for the husband was about 900,000, and then his beneficiaries inherit 750,000 in the pre-tax IRA. And the reason this is important is it feeds into the next tab. So again, this tab is just for purposes of calculating the RMD and the inherited pre-tax IRA. Once you go into the next tab, here is where a lot of the family-specific details show up. So if you look here, by the way, just in terms of how the spreadsheet works, green means it's being pulled from another tab. So that means either the input or the formulas for another tab, and the blue means you should update it. So the way this particular tab works is you put in your personal information. For example, again, this is the same couple, age 62, age 60, and enter in your salary information. In this case, the husband, 62, works until age 65. Here's his salary. Enter that in here. The wife can put in her information as well. Maybe you have some rental income. Maybe you have some interest income if you're in CDs, for example. It's all very person specific. And how the sheet works is after you've entered in your personal information here, it actually starts to calculate your ordinary income tax and the bracket that you're in. So in this case, again, you can see the husband has retired by 2028. So by 2028, you can see the taxes are very low, right? There's this, we had talked about this a moment ago on the slide. There are windows of opportunity where your taxes are very low, and that's when you want to start to do Roth conversions. And just very quickly touching up here, what this is right here is, remember we had also mentioned the fact that your beneficiary, for example, your child's tax rate is also important, because this, for example, if your child is in a 24% tax bracket, which is pretty reasonable for a working adult, the tax taxes paid on the inherited IRA, remember the inherited IRA is from the RMD calculator tab we just worked on, that can be quite high. And this even assumes 0% returns on this total inherited IRA. The reality is the tax might be even a little bit higher because maybe you're still earning some gains during those 10 years when the IRA is inherited. So what happens is this box here starts to calculate both the lifetime taxes paid, so that's the sum of this total income tax, as well as the taxes paid by your beneficiary. And the sum of these two gives you the total cash taxes paid, right? So right now you can see it's about a little under 980,000. And what you can do with this tab is you can start to try out different conversions. So for example, we can see here, we're in quite a low tax bracket in year 2028. So we can try 50,000 in conversions. So you'll notice when we added those conversions, the total cash taxes paid a moment ago, it was 978,000. Now it's 964,000. Maybe we also do some conversions in the wife's IRA. Now it's 950,000. So what's happened is we've saved about $30,000 in taxes. And what we can do is we can keep on playing around with this, right? Maybe we pull it out for a few years and look at that. That's gone, this was 980,000, right? It's now 870,000. And if you look here, you can see we're not even filling up the 22% tax bracket. And what that probably means is we should increase these amounts because remember the beneficiary tax rate is a bit higher. So if, for example, let's try 100,000 in conversions and pull that out. It looks like income started to go up here because Social Security is starting to kick in, but we're still not in that high of brackets. We can pull that out. And you can see here, this amount is now 800,000. So we've almost saved $200,000 in taxes at this point. The reality is we won't optimize this in this call, but the reality is you can probably do some more conversions. That's probably too much because I can see it's, I can see it's gone to 0 in future years. So you can kind of play around with the numbers. And we've gone from about 980 to 760,000 in the total cash taxes. And again, we also have the net present value here. The net present value takes into account the time value of money, right? The return on investment, which is in ideal world, you actually pay less taxes today than you do 5 years from now, because $100 saved today in terms of taxes probably could, it could grow. It grows every year, right? So that's essentially, again, this MPV calculation that just takes into account the time value of money, very similar to the Social Security tab. So that is this tab. This is really for you to kind of play around.
I think this is a good opportunity to answer a few questions related to this concept. The first question we have is, can pre-taxed IRA conversions to Roth count as required minimum distributions?
Unfortunately not. So the RMD must be a withdrawal. You can do both an RMD and a conversion in the same year if you want, but the RMD has to be in the form of a withdrawal.
Is there a limit to how much money you can convert into Roth in any given year?
So let's say you've reached the age of 60. At that point in time, you can choose to convert as much as you want. Now, you probably don't want to convert everything in 1 year because you're trying, it's kind of similar to the concept of of your kids spreading out the withdrawal over 10 years, you also kind of want to do the same thing. You want to choose the years where you have the least taxes, but you can choose to convert as much as you want.
Yeah. We have a question from Jill. What if all my traditional IRA are already after tax? When should I do the Roth conversion?
Okay, interesting. So if your traditional IRA were all after tax contributions, in that case, I don't think you actually have to worry about when you did the conversion because you've already paid taxes on that amount. I want to be a little bit careful here because that's not a scenario I'm as familiar with where all the contributions were after tax. But my understanding is that you should be fine in that scenario.
Excuse me, Nick. I've done that many times. So that's the backdoor Roth. Every year you contribute after tax into your IRA, and the next day you can convert it to Roth. That's the backdoor.
Yes, yeah. If you're talking, so yeah, I guess it sounds like potentially whoever's asking this question was doing the backdoor Roth, but did not do the second step of transferring it from a traditional to a Roth, in which case all of it is now after tax in the traditional, which I'm actually a little bit worried about the tax implications of that. But typically the backdoor Roth, if that's the scenario you're talking about, you're going to be totally fine because it's already in your Roth in that scenario. I'm a little bit less sure about if you did the first step of the backdoor Roth. That one we might have to take offline, and I have to think a little bit more about the accounting implications of that.
Yeah, there's a ton of questions, but maybe we move on for now, and then we can always circle back.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to hit questions in just a minute. There's one last tab I want to spend just 5 minutes on, which is IRMA. So IRMA is a income-related monthly adjustment amount, and what that means is once you start paying for Medicare, if you have a certain income level, like a high income, there's the possibility that you have to pay more in Medicare premiums. So the purpose of this tab is just to check if you've crossed any of those thresholds. Excuse me. So in this case, right now, we haven't crossed any thresholds, but let me give a practical example. Let's say in the year 2028, and this is going to clarify how IRMA works, but in the year 2028, let's say we convert a lot. Again, this doesn't make too much sense, but I'm going to show it here. So let's say we convert a bunch of our pre-tax into Roth in 2028. How IRMA works is it looks 2 years back. So 2028 is when we had a really high income, and 2030 is when IRMA does the measurement. So in year 2030, it's going to look at your income in year 2028. And you can see here, because the income is quite high in year 2028, remember we had done it in 2028, actually you're in a pretty high IRMA bracket. You're going to pay an extra $12,000 per year for both the husband, in total for the husband and the wife, because you're in the 5th IRMA bracket in your income. And the way to use the sheet is this will actually tell you how much income you need to reduce by to move down one bracket. And in this case, for example, if we decrease the conversion amount by 20,000, so let's say 380,000, we should have moved down to bracket 4, and that will result in less premiums. So again, IRMA is a 2-year look back. So Medicare kicks in age 65, age 63, in theory, is when you need to start being conscious of the fact that if you accidentally spike your income too much, either through conversions or through a large capital gain, that's also possible, that you might get bumped into higher IRMA bracket. So this tab is just a last final check to take into consideration your Medicare premiums. So that is the summary of the sheet. I do want to say one caveat on the sheet, which is to make things simple. We haven't, there's a lot of different potential taxes, right? Like there's long-term capital gains, there's net investment income. We've tried to make it simple and exclude some of those things, and really only focus on the ordinary income, which is the biggest impact on how much you want to convert your Roth. So I do want to be cautious. This isn't designed to give a perfect estimate of your taxes in any given year. To do that, you can always run the scenarios through TurboTax, but this is more just a general planning sheet to get a sense of when you need to start converting and what magnitude you need to start converting. Okay, so I'll swap back over to the slides.
I don't think, there we go.
Perfect. And that's really, those are the main things to highlight. I think what we'll do is we'll make sure to share the sheet and make sure everyone has access, and you can watch the recording as well to make sure you can review what we may, any particular parts that you want to have more detail on. But I think we have a little bit of time for questions at the end as well, right, John?
Yeah, we have about 15 minutes. So I don't know if you can see the chat directly, or I can read off some questions.
Okay, I'll also open it up here. Oops. Oh. Do you still see my screen, John?
I see the slide up.
Oh, okay, perfect.
What we want.
Good,
yeah.
good. Yes, okay, let me oh, okay. Okay, I'm looking in the chat, right?
I guess one question that should be pretty quick while you catch up on the chat is, can you still do Roth conversions once you start to withdraw RMD?
Sorry, do you mind repeating that, John?
Yeah. Can you still do Roth conversions?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You can still do conversions even once you're in RMD years. Okay, where should I start? Should I start from the bottom? I want to.
Yeah, maybe just start from the bottom, I think. I've tried to catch as many questions as I can through the chat, so just try starting from the bottom.
Okay, the question.
Actually, sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead.
The most common question that we've been getting throughout the evening is, where do we download the spreadsheet? So just make sure you join one of the WeChat groups. On the right side of the slide, you can scan that QR code to join group 7. After the presentation, we'll post a link to the spreadsheet in the WeChat group.
Perfect. Okay.
这个 7 已经满了，这个 group 7
okay.
is full
okay.
already.
Okay, let me think. We will I'm going to keep answering questions.
Yeah, keep answering questions.
We'll logistically figure it out. Yep. Okay.
Please repeat again how to download the little right corner. I didn't get it. can you just be kind and repeat it? How can get a download? I have to click something. I think I miss it.
Oh, how to download it from the sheet?
Right. Do I have to click something?
Yep. So let me swap back to the sheet. Let me make sure to show everyone this because I think it's important. Give me one moment. Okay. Screen. Okay. You have to click File. So File.
Okay.
And then Download. And then Microsoft Excel.
So what is the file? What is the screen? I don't see the same screen. What I
你要
have.
加入微信群，在微信群里才能 download 的。你要先加微信群，这里不能当。
我有微信群，都有。
你等开完会，他会把这个文件发出来让你 download 的，好不好？现在还没有发。
不着急，对，现在回到问题 Q&A section.
Post the file, then you can download.
Thank you. Don't worry about. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah. Don't worry. Everyone will make sure you have access to the sheet. We'll make sure I do. This one is important because I get a lot of edit access requests for the sheet. But this, what we'll do is we'll send a screenshot of this. And what I'll do is I won't be logged in. I'll go into it from your perspective and I'll take a screenshot and share it with the group.
That's great. Super great. Thank you.
Can you just paste the URL to the chat of the Zoom meeting, and then everyone should have it, right?
Yes, I think that's another way we can do it as well. Let me. Okay, well, let me. I'm going to keep on going through the questions. Sorry, just to make sure I kind of get everyone's time. John, do you mind just kind of keeping up with this? Okay, cool. Okay. Okay. There was a question earlier starting from Tim. Does Medicare check IRMA income every year? Yes, it checks every year. There's a check on the income 2 years before. So once you're, for example, 65, it will check your income when you're age 63. Once you're 66, it will check your income at age 64, and that will continue to be the case. Okay. Are those IRMA numbers for future years official numbers from the IRS? They are not. So one thing to be aware of from the spreadsheet, everyone, is every time we're talking about future numbers, or sorry, excuse me, future years, we don't have that information in advance. So that's actually the same for the best we can do is kind of estimate the future tax brackets as well based on assumed inflation rates. But we can't actually know the precise IRMA brackets or the precise tax brackets as well. I do think one thing to be aware of for IRMA is you do have to be very with tax brackets, because it's marginal tax rate. It's okay. It's okay if you're a little bit over a tax bracket, because in that case, you'll just have a little bit of money taxed at the higher rate. For IRMA, it is a hard cutoff, meaning if you are a little bit above, you will have to pay the entire amount of the surcharge. So please just, you can also see your actual, you can, for example, type in theory, the numbers into TurboTax, and you can actually see the exact amount of adjusted gross income you potentially have. Most of the time, the IRMA brackets are pretty high. So most of the time you do have some wiggle room, but you do have to be more precise than your tax brackets. Okay.
Nick, this is Mindy. I try to help you with IRMA one thing because I just went through the appeal process. And if you are just retired and you have your income last year pretty high, however, you can appeal to the Social Security office to say you are retired, your income this year will be this and that, and the total added will be like below a certain level, and then they will give you like a determine the OMA range until they check your 2 years later, they check your income, and then they found that you choose, that's okay. So you have like a peer process. You can do that.
Okay, yeah, that's great information for everyone. Thank you for sharing. Okay, let's see.
By the way, we also just set up a group 8. So for those who cannot scan the QR code to get into group 7, Nick's mom just posted a QR link for group 8, so you can just scan that instead. Otherwise, I'm still going through the WeChat request, and then I'll manually add you into 7, so no worries.
Okay, I see a question from L. I think Jack answered it for you. That is correct. Okay, so there's, oops, sorry, go ahead.
Can you set the beneficiary for your grandchildren as a beneficiary instead of your direct children?
I think so. I believe so.
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think if they're underage, there are certain things you need to do, right, Nick?
Yeah.
So I would double check if your grandchildren are below, if they're not adults yet. But I'm pretty sure you can.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see.
Can you show the group A and we can the QR code so we can scan, please?
Yep, I'm gonna share it once more in the chat right now.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. I'll keep on going through the questions. Roth IRA 6,500 per year is upper limit, means convert Social Security, or sorry, probably not Social Security is the question. It's asking if that's the limit for converting. I think okay. So one thing to clarify, the 6,500 now 7,000 per year. I think you're talking about is a backdoor Roth, where you're trying to contribute to the Roth directly, right? That's a little bit separate from the concept of converting your pre-tax to a Roth. The idea behind the backdoor is basically you're trying to directly contribute to your Roth, as opposed to, it happens to be kind of like an after-tax to Roth conversion, but there's not a limit on converting pre-tax to Roth. Now, you will be taxed on it, and there are some specifics if you're younger than age 59 and a half, where you just have to make sure if you're doing the conversion and you're younger than 59 and a half, that's totally fine. You just have to pay the tax, the taxable income related to that conversion from funds outside of your pre-tax IRA. Okay.
Hey, Nick, I have a question. Hey, Nick, for the regular Roth IRA, is there any age limitation? Let's say at a certain age, you cannot do contribution anymore. Is there such a thing?
To contribute to the Roth directly.
Right. As long as you qualify for the, okay.
Yeah, you can continue to contribute to the Roth.
Okay, how about the backdoor? Anyone can do a backdoor every year? It doesn't matter your income, is that right or not?
I don't think so. You have to have earned income to contribute to IRA, any IRA.
No, I'm talking the Roth IRA.
Roth, same.
Same.
Yeah,
The backdoor. I'm talking about the backdoor Roth
To
IRA.
earn money.
No IRA contribution, doesn't matter is traditional or Roth unless you have earned income. If you don't have wages or self-employed income, you cannot contribute to IRA. Doesn't matter. It's Roth.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, that is a good clarification.
Okay, I'm talking about the when you have income, the reason you do backdoor because you have too much income, right? You cannot qualify for regular Roth IRA anymore. So you do the backdoor because of your high income. So I'm asking, my question is that backdoor IRA, Roth IRA has no limitation for the income? That's my question.
Yes, that's correct. The backdoor is a way to get around the income limit.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna still try to, I think it might be a little, I wanna be fair to people putting their questions in the chat. So if you can put your question in the chat, I'm gonna do my best to go through as many as possible here.
One question is, I don't know if we addressed this. Is there a limit on how much money you can convert to Roth every year?
I think we addressed this. I think
okay, I wasn't sure.
For conversions, you can convert as much as you want. And then there are some things to keep in mind if you convert before 59.5. But you just want to you probably don't want to convert everything in 1 year to make sure your tax isn't too high. Okay, let me see. Strategy for starting. Okay, the question is, if I want to get Medicare age 65, what's the strategy for starting Social Security? The two are kind of are a little bit separate. The Social Security part will, the only reason why they might be related is if Social Security plus a large Roth conversion results in you hitting the next IRMA bracket. But otherwise, you want to think about the two independently. I'm not sure I get this question. How does the question, Jet, do you mind clarifying your question a bit about the prorate calculation? Okay, I'll keep on going through here. You can do conversions, and a question is if you contribute through a backdoor Roth and also want to do a conversion in the same year, that you can do. Yes. Okay, go down. Okay, a question is, my aunt has already collected her own Social Security benefit for some years, but we found she can get more if she claimed the spousal benefit instead. Can she switch? We heard from friends that if she makes the switch, she will need to pay back all her benefits that she has collected in the past. That does not sound correct. That if you make the switch to spousal benefits, that you have to pay back your prior collections. I don't think that's true, but maybe worth double checking. But that doesn't sound right to me.
I think Nancy has a question, by the way. She has her hand raised.
Okay, yes.
Hi, I'm the husband of Nancy, so I will ask the question. This is scenario for husband and wife couple. One has higher income, one has lower income. So can you still do the scenario like you can withdraw the Social Security benefits from low income earner first, and for the higher income one to get the half of that, but not taking the higher incomes Social Security benefit until 70. So then at that point you drop the half benefits from the spouse benefit, and then take the 70 of the higher income Social Security benefits. Is there something you still can do, or some loophole got, stopped by the IRS?
So just to make sure I understand, let me give a hypothetical scenario. The wife, for example, is taking 50% of the husband's Social Security. You're saying?
No, it's different. It's the wife has lower income, so the wife take the Social Security first, then the husband take half of that. But the husband higher income, he doesn't take his. He let it continue holding until age 70. So by then, the husband dropped the half of the spouse benefits.
I see what you're saying.
Okay. Take the 70 benefit, from the higher income starting.
Yeah, I no, unfortunately not. Unfortunately, you can't do that.
Yeah. I think that's okay. That's I was told earlier you can do, now you can't do it. Okay.
Okay. Unfortunately, it looks like our time is up. Nick, did you want to just quickly wrap up here?
Yeah, guys, sorry. First of all, really appreciate everyone hopping on. I know, like, it actually is. It's really cool having, I think John mentioned 500 people on the call and more on the YouTube. I realized YouTube, we weren't able to answer any of their questions, so I feel very bad about that. We want to be respectful of everyone's time, and at the same time, make sure we're able to maybe answer people's questions. If they have more on the WeChat, maybe we can combine all of them and then release one document or one video where we answer everyone's questions so they can watch on their own time. But we want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining. This is it's very rewarding because we're able to kind of reach and help many people at one point. Thank you so much to Yan Jianping and CAFA for hosting us. We're always trying to improve and figure out what else people want. So please let us know if you have any ideas of things that would be helpful. One thing we are trying to do as well is we have a friend who has very kindly said she will help us turn the spreadsheet into a website at some point. We don't want to, she's doing this out of kindness, so we're not going to put any pressure on her, but hopefully at some point in time in the future, we'll also be able to have this on a website, and we can keep improving it for people. And finally, feel free to share the spreadsheet. We want it to reach more people. And we're always trying to figure out other ways to scale, right? Zhang and I want to do things big, and the more people we reach, the more people, our the time we put in can help more people. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for hopping on. We do know sometimes these can run very long, so we want to be strict about the time for everyone, and we can figure out the best way to answer as many questions as possible as well after the call.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice night. Enjoy your Sunday.